Well, greetings and welcome to the Black Blockchain Summit. This panel asked the question that everyone wants to know. Is AI the saving grace or is it doomsday? Is it going to bring about Skynet or is it going to change the face of humanity as we know it? And we've got a great panel of guests that are not only going to dive deep into that question, but also get some nuance to it, because probably the correct answer is that it's neither one of those things, but it's somewhere in the messy middle. So we're going to try to dive in and ask our panel of experts to share their points of view and really get into the weeds, if you will. So I want to start out by introducing our panelists and ask them to give a brief introduction into who they are and what they're doing. And I'm going to start with Jasmine Brunson, who is the creator of blockchain culture and founder of Rectify.ai.
Thank you so much, Bob. Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Brunson. I am the CTO and founder of Rectify AI. We are a Web3 cybersecurity company sifting out the bugs and vulnerabilities behind the code of cryptocurrency companies. In my experience, I worked at the JPL, NASA, Machine Learning and Autonomy Instrument Group. So I've worked there. I worked at Maxwell Technologies for X.AI, doing a lot of satellite imagery using Bayesian UQ, and then also like doing projects on data exfiltration, data privacy as it pertains to satellite imagery. So, I've kind of dabbled with I would say the side of the industry where ethics could be involved, like image spoofing, having different types of, obviously, adversaries, looking at the satellite images of other adversarial countries. But in the context of I would say social cultural, there hasn't been many applications of AI where I've seen it benefit us or benefit people, especially people of color. If we see issues with facial recognition, I know Dr. Joy from MIT, she's one of the women who's championing, how often should we have TSA take in our facial recognition technology or take in our face and then, put that into a pipeline and have the police detect us. So I haven't seen real world applications where facial recognition has really benefited us, especially when it comes to social cultural applications.
Great. Thank you, Jasmine. Next up, Caleb Boyes. Caleb, can you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, good morning. So my name is Caleb Boyce. Started with a proud graduate and alum of Howard University. And I've been started my career in consulting and worked in operations generally across multiple industries. Spent a good amount of time in oil and gas and energy and telecom infrastructure. And then the past few years of working in blockchain. And I was working at Dapper Labs in 2021 through about the end of last year. And while I was there, I did a bunch of things, but the biggest thing I'm most proud of is built the Black Creator Fund. And so that's basically an accelerator grant program, $1.2 million we distributed to 23 Black-owned, Black-led Web3 projects that are building on Dapper Labs blockchain flow. And after completing that, I actually started working with a DAO community platform called Commonwealth, or Common. And so I'm running business operations strategy for them. And just love complexity. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic as well. I have some insights on, the convergence of AI and blockchain and some of the benefits and drawbacks, kind of like what Jasmine mentioned.
Great. Thank you, Caleb. Next, we have Peter Akwara, who is joining us from Kenya and is the CEO of CareerGo, which is an AI-powered job application tool. Peter, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
So hi, everyone. My name is Peter Akwara. Yeah, I founded CareerGo this year, and it was trying to help people in the job application process. So we are using AI to kind of help people generate these cover letters and resumes and things like that. My background is actually from the blockchain background. So from 2019 till around March this year, I was working at the IOTA Foundation as a software developer. And I worked mainly on the logistics of exportation of flowers and putting it on the blockchain. And AI, from my side, I think AI has a lot of benefits, and I'd like to share them to the panel. Yeah.
And also joining us is intellectual property attorney Jesse Fenty. Jesse, how are you this fine day?
Great to be with you this morning in this nice panel, accomplished, distinguished group. So I'm also a graduate of Howard University School of Engineering, Electrical Engineering, law degree from American University. Former patent examiner. I work as a patent attorney, a trademark attorney. And so the big question for AI is inventorship. Can AI be the inventor? And even if it's not the sole inventor, if you're using AI to a great extent to create your inventions and your ideas, your copyrights, your designs, who owns it? And then so that's the big question in intellectual property. And so I'm eager to see how it fits into this discussion today.
But to add on to it, it's also a question of is AI appropriating creators who are already out there? Would you say that's also a corollary to that?
Right. Well, I mean, copying is the big issue in intellectual property, and who can copy and whether it's infringement. And if a machine does it, is it infringement in the same sense as if a company does it? Is the machine owning it and making a profit from it, or are people using that? And so who's responsible? And so the legality of those things will be decided in the coming years. And it's an emerging field, just like with blockchain and AI. It's in intellectual property, it's emerging, and the cases really haven't even come yet to court to really decide some of the issues. So a lot of the legal issues are still being developed as we speak in this moment.
Well, that's definitely the excitement of the unknown and the excitement of the promise and the opportunities and potential threats. So let's talk about the threats up front, because that's gotten a lot of headlines. We've heard of the doomsday scenarios, but we've also heard of a lot of leading experts in AI who have called for the slowdown of development until we put more guardrails in place, per se. So I want to ask each of you to just kind of jump in and tell me what your perceptions of the dangers of AI are. Jasmine, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start us off. I did a case study in undergrad at UMD, and we talked about the 2015 police case for Baltimore Police Department and how they created an algorithm leveraging facial recognition technology. If you ever look at those traffic lights or those intersections between traffic lights and lights in the city, there's always a camera there. So they leveraged that and pulled that into the police department's database. And they created an algorithm that said, based upon the amount of tattoos that you have or the type of tattoos, you could be affiliated with a gang or not affiliated with a gang. What did that, focus on? What demographic did that focus on in Baltimore? Black men. And so they unfortunately incarcerated innocent Black men, and they had to scrap that entire project. That's one of the many cases in which AI has been leveraged, especially when it comes to value add models. That's something that Kathy O'Neill is kind of projecting in her book, Weapons of Mass Destruction, how these value add models that create algorithms that embed encoded human bias into it are not good models. There's a saying from George Box, all models can be useful, but all models are wrong, like at the end of the day, and some of which are being deployed in real life. Same thing happens with, I would say, entrance exams for schools, the top schools and universities that we go to in the States. These value add models are literally put in place to keep a certain demographic out. And they exist, and there a lot of which are listed, like I said, in Weapons of Mass Destruction, but there's tons of books that talk about these problems. And I know Timnit, who she's a progenitor, and also she worked for Google AI, pivoted from that, and now has her own DAR Institute. She's a big, I would say, progenitor of how we can leverage ethical, responsible AI to have a better future when it comes to this technology.
Great. Caleb, your thoughts on the downside of AI?
Yeah, I'll speak about it in the context of blockchain, because I do think it's really powerful. I use like ChatGPT and some of these things like every day, so I found a lot of benefits of it. But in the context of like blockchain, I think it's interesting because in one sense, AI is only able to be done, with like large amounts of computing resources. Usually, it's going to that's going to obviously result in centralization of resources. So not every person, unlike blockchain, not every person can spin up a node and be a part of a blockchain and have something that's like, participatory or raise money or do that. It's really going to be centralized in large organizations and concerns that have, a lot of power. And that really goes against the centralization, decentralization aspect of blockchain. So it kind of like conflicts with that inherently. I think also you have a huge risk around, AI's ability to crack, security essentially. And I know Jasmine has more experience on this than I do, but from my understanding, it's that, we are able to use AI to, basically crack blockchains, maybe not right now, or maybe in the next few years. And the only thing that's really keeping that happening at scale is the fact that those computers required to do that are really expensive and really hard to fund, and usually are centralized in like large organizations or corporations. And so I do think it poses a lot of threats to some of the benefits that we saw with blockchain. What we've been touting for the past few years is with the advent and popularization of blockchain is that, AI does threaten that in a way from both the side of like centralization of resources and, which goes against the ethos of blockchain technology and Web3. And then also, with the ability to be able to actually hack blockchains. So.
Peter, your thoughts on the downside of AI?
Yeah, I think the downside I've seen so far is that, well, the good thing with like things like OpenAI, when you try and ask it any illegal stuff, there's a barrier to that. But with the new models that are being deployed, like the way Facebook deployed the Llama AI model to GitHub, I think we're going to have scenarios where people will start to kind of get the code and then now try and use it for malicious reasons. I've seen one use case where they're trying to generate like toolkits for hacking websites and software. So I think that will actually be on the rise as time goes by. Yeah.
Jesse, your thoughts on the downside of AI?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, or it's a funny thing because the evolution of technology and computers, especially, the PC was created by kind of the hippie generation in a sense to open up, to give access to the little man to kind of fight IBM. So was the web. The web could have been patented. The guy, I think it was Berners-Lee out of England, who developed the web, could have patented it, but he said, no, I want this to be open to people so they can use it and create. So I think AI and blockchain come out of that mantra of opening up technology for everyone and taking some of the power away. So I think it will take some power away from the intellectual property. I think more people will be able to create things and the AI will create things. So I think it will, in a sense, it could weaken the IP, but it depends on, of course, who wants to fight back about it. Because even like the Napster case, like with music, when MP3s became available, at first everybody thought it was all free, but then the law caught up with it and actually sued the owner of Napster and sued people for the using of the music without a license. So the same thing could happen with the software, with the AI. The creators of those systems that actually copy and create, and copy people's work, maybe they'll go after the creators of those systems. And so maybe there will be some liability in the future. So it's still to be determined.
So I think we got a clue from, I understand OpenAI hired the former head of IP counsel from Microsoft to come up on board their team. And the speculation is that his role is to now start basically coming up with a licensing process so that those big intellectual property holders like the Disneys would basically have a path that they could connect to it, and there would be a way that their IP could be trained into these models and create some sort of a royalty scheme or payment for them. And so I wonder what your thoughts on this, and what about, we know that the big IP owners are going to fight tooth and nail for their property. What about the little ones? Do you see them having a problem? Because I don't see an advocate for them at the same level as the Disneys of the world are going to have.
Well, to kick off, right, the licensing will be important for the big guys, but I wonder what the other panelists think about open source, because a lot of small creators really big on, open sourcing the material. And I think the newer generation tends to think that most things are free in a sense. They don't have that, they're not tied to the laws of yesteryear. So that could be a factor as well. So I'd be interested in what other people think about that.
Any thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, I think about go ahead.
Go ahead.
You sure? All right, so I think about this all the time because this is a fashion site called finesse.us. So all the ladies that's watching this probably know about them. They have smaller artists that kind of get it out the mud, get out the dirt. And unfortunately, there are some ML algorithms that have been used to kind of extract some of their, I would call their fashion as a data set. So extract their data set and then put it into their training data and leverage that and make their own type of say corset or XYZ. So from that perspective, when it comes to the smaller people, I think they deserve protection as well. The question is, where do they get the protection? Do we start a DAO? Do we create, how do we galvanize capital to support the smaller artists? Because the big companies, they have access to capital to fight those infringements. Like you guys were saying about Microsoft, all these other big companies, Disney, XYZ, they have the access to capital, but I do think the smaller people should be able to protect their intellectual property. I think the whole idea of going out and saying, okay, let's license this style or let's license this data set because this is my IP, I think that's a smart way to go about it. I think that people should be being paid royalties on their work, especially if you're funneling their data, I'm going to call it a data set, into your training data. That belongs to them. But we haven't had some type of decentralized way of tracking. Okay, I know that this lady who works for Shein or this lady who works for Fashion Nova, her actual idea was used in this new style that, say, Balenciaga is trying to sell. There's no way of tracking that. So there is an application for decentralization and blockchain for this. It's just that this is just so new to everyone that we're just scrambling and trying to figure out solutions.
So let's talk about the upside of AI, because I think everybody here is excited about the potential. And again, this panel is about looking at both sides of it, because I think we have an obligation to not go into it with rosy colored glasses and look at the obstacles, but also we're excited by the opportunities. So I'd like you all to just kind of outline what you think the potential benefits for us as individuals, as communities, and as creators of businesses. Let's start with you, Peter.
Yes, so I've had quite a number of advantages of using the AI. So one of them is, for example, is in marketing. So as someone who's starting out in business, you need to kind of create all this marketing copy for the landing page, for your email and for your email copy and things like that. AI has really helped in terms of coming up with the right wording to kind of use in those scenarios. But then also it depends, because you have to know what you're looking for and then tell it so that you can get the right content for marketing to use. The same case in the software realm. I think it has also helped a lot in that things like using things like GitHub Copilot, when you are not understanding a piece of code, maybe it's in blockchain, maybe it's in AI, you can easily ask the AI to explain to you what does this piece of code do, and then it'll give you the answer. Same thing with generating resumes and cover letters. But then also, I think the best model to use AI is where the AI is like an intern and you are like the boss. So the AI creates leverage for you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's supposed to approve the work, to say that, yeah, this work is good or this work is needs more revision, because you can't fully trust what content AI produces. Yeah.
Caleb, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I think about, the advent of the internet and how people, ultimately were able to use it for lots of ways to create economic benefit for themselves. So where you were able, maybe pre-internet, create a shop in your town and maybe, scale to a large, retailer, maybe something like that. That was pretty much the only path, and it was very unlikely for a lot of folks, especially folks of color. And so I think that the internet allows, through e-commerce and several advantages, to be able to create a lot of economic opportunity for lots of different people. I think the AI is going to do the same thing. How I see it being used now is like small business owners, kind of to Peter's point, are able to leverage it for things that normally would have been unavailable for them, to be able to help scale their businesses or to become more professional or reach different audiences. And so there's just a lot of power in it to be used. And I think that while it's intimidating in the sense that like it's very powerful and like it's like relatively unknown, I think if you compare that to how the internet was received, initially too, and as it developed over the the next 30 years, it's kind of the same thing. So I'm actually pretty optimistic about it, but I'm also very aware that like it's a double-edged sword, like Jesse mentioned, and so I think what's really interesting with blockchain is that you can actually, there's a lot of on-chain data that's really hard to kind of process and crunch, and there's going to be increasing amounts of it, just the nature of how blockchain is, like how it works. And so I think that the benefits of AI in that context are really powerful and really exciting. And like I said, I think that there's, like, for example, Algorand is already like quantum hardened against some of these things that AI might be able to crack blockchains with. And so like I think that things are going to be moving fast just as they happen. So I'm actually really excited about that opportunity there. And so in a way, kind of also to, I think Jasmine's point and Jesse's point too, is that there's ability for us to be able to like claim ownership over the things that we're building using AI to build, and also distinguish between when AI is actually building something based on our inputs versus something we created uniquely. So I think it actually is a huge benefit for it's drawing out the need to have like a benefit or distinguishing between what's actually we made and what's AI made, and then what's made by us and what's made by corporations that want to like look like us or like appear like us. And so I'm pretty excited about it.
So Caleb, earlier you brought up the kind of juxtaposition of blockchain, which kind of focuses on decentralization, which we've always felt is important because it gave us a system that we could have a level playing field. We've always had a problem with traditional finance and traditional business because we've always had the table tilted against us. AI presents a conundrum in that, you have some of these large language models that are being developed. As Jasmine brought up, the issue of bias is a real thing. And at the same point in time, we might have the opportunity to develop our own AIs and counter that bias. So how do we swim in these waters where we can direct AI to the direction we need to go so that we actually, get some benefits out of it, and not as Jasmine has brought up, and I just read something yesterday about a woman in Detroit who was arrested wrongly because of facial recognition. So this is a real and present danger that we're already, that's not, down the road, it's already here. So just your thoughts on how do we steer AI to a direction that helps us achieve our goals, which is at the minimum an equal playing field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about how like our community really took on blockchain and cryptocurrency, how eager we were to receive it and leverage it because of lack of access, like writ large, to financial institutions, that kind of thing. So, and I think that AI presents the same opportunity that we could adopt this, as early adopters as a community amongst Black folks. And I think that's a huge opportunity. And by having that early adoption and being involved, that's going to help us like drive against some of the things that would naturally happen when these more centralized organizations are dictating, what it's being used for and kind of policy around it and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about, our ability to, be engaged and leverage it. I think that, as people start to use it more and as we come up with more use cases in our community and how to use it, I think it's going to be better, and it will give us more access. That's my hope. It's like a really hard question you presented there, but that's kind of what I'm excited about. Is that us being early adopters and really helping drive that, and also I think that really important work that that Jasmine's doing and other folks to really raise like the awareness around the dangers of this stuff, so we understand like how we might be taken advantage of or how we might be discriminated against with this technology, so we're aware of it, so we can call it out, and then hopefully force or influence legislation to mitigate some of those risks.
Jasmine, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, Bob, you asked a charge question. I think about this all the time. Oh man, I think where I would start is we need to just participate, period. Like participate. We need to be the AI engineers, the ML engineers at the table and having those hard discussions. That's the role that Timnit played at Google. And unfortunately it went left. But at the end of the day, when you're standing up for something, it's either you stand up for something, you fall for everything. So we need to participate. We need to make sure that the next generation of engineers, we know about blockchain, we know how to build smart contracts, we know about what's happening with AI. And I think it's actually more accessible now with OpenAI and what they did with ChatGPT. I think everyone from a 5-year-old will know about what's happening in the world when it comes to AI prompting. That's something that I love from the coding space. When I'm having issues with a smart contract, I can go into ChatGPT, ask it, hey, what's going on with this constructor, and it gives me back an answer. I love that as an assistant, like Peter was saying earlier. But there's downsides and there's positive sides to this technology. I just hope that in the future we can kind of like leverage, okay, how do we make AI make our lives better? Because that's why it exists, is to help the human. In the work that I do for smart contract auditing, we've been talking a lot about AI tools, especially with code analysis. And unfortunately, we have to this day a high number of false positives and false negatives, specifically false positives in the space. And so we're trying to get to the part of the confusion matrix where we get true positive, true negative, and have higher, I would say, F1 and recall and precision scores when it comes to that side. But all it is an assistant. That's why I love the analogy that Peter said. Like all AI is an assistant. We just need to get to a space where we're using it as an assistant, not as an all and be all.
I want to chime in on the upsides in the IP space. Something Jazz been saying about, about capital and access with, with a patent application, which is a fundamental document to obtain your rights in my space. It can do tremendous things in terms of helping people flesh out their ideas and actually drop down the costs. So someone can actually take their idea and feed it into ChatGPT or some other, algorithm and spit out 80% of the document, in a model. And I can, I have a class on that and showing people how to, and I can just come behind it and just tweak it and put in some legalese and then file it. And so we can get a lot more patent applications and ideas into the system. And, it can also be used for legal documents and all kinds of other things as well. So I think using it and then publicizing it on social media, what we're doing, and showing people that we're using this technology is a good way to promote it and show people that it is accessible and powerful.
So we're almost time to wrap up. I wanted to leave a couple of thoughts on this, that from a perspective of how we go forward, one of the things we want to always look at with all these models is the data source. What are they training on it? How are they training? Because garbage in, garbage out, biased information in, biased information out. The second thing is that we have multiple large language models, and we can play them against each other to see, who's giving real information. And so I think we should not be attached to just any one model, but let's through this period, try them all out and see which ones are giving us real answers and not. So we got a couple of minutes left. So we want to give kind of a lightning round opportunity for last comments. And we'll start with you, Jesse.
Yeah, as we were talking, the words like community came to mind in a sense, of working together and publicizing what we're doing. And I was thinking about fraud too, because in this world of AI, in this new world, there's so many bots out there, so much kind of fake information. So there has to be a way of certifying what's real and what's not. And I think just working together and just forming communities more to be able to establish trust, because in this, in the world that we're in, there seems to be a lack of, that thread of distrust is constantly out there.
Peter?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about the field you're working on and whether it requires accuracy or not. Like, for example, in a medical field, if the AI hallucinates and gives a wrong answer, it may actually lead to loss of life. Same case in law, and same case in other fields. So it's identifying the fields, identifying whether your use case requires high accuracy, and then trying to kind of minimize the impact around that. Yeah.
Caleb.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to brother Gerald Carter with Destined AI. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he's building these models, basically data models for AI that are based on, he calls them ethically sourced. And so, and he's using them a lot and has success like selling these models into cosmetology, cosmetology, basically hair and makeup beauty brands. And also how they do their sourcing. So it takes, I think I'm really excited about the amount of like entrepreneurs, especially like everybody who's on this panel who are driving this stuff forward and really like taking ownership of like making sure this is like something that's representative for us in the future.
Jasmine, you get the last word.
I'm going to do a resource drop. We should not just be complaining about the tech and the world that's happening around us. We should learn about how we can penetrate it, how to code XYZ. If you're trying to get into AI, data science, tap into Python. You can learn Python with ChatGPT. Tap into PyTorch, TensorFlow. And then if you want to really start out and do something that you maybe enjoy and then learn the hard stuff, you can get into Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, play around with the AI art with Hugging Face, and then get into like learning what a tensor is and how to code in Python and create your own AI model. So let's participate. Let's not just complain about the world happening around us. Love y'all.
Great. Thank you so much. Great panel. Check out all the panels on the Black Blockchain Summit, and also go check out and follow these panelists because they've got great information. Thank you for joining us.